President Biden now has a new strategy to lower oil and gas prices by putting the burden completely on President Vladimir Putin's shoulders. He declared enhanced domestic production and supply by tapping into the Strategic Petroleum Reserve and releasing 1 million barrels of oil per day for 6 months to give us all a respite. Let's take a quick look at Biden's strategy to combat increasing gas costs. So all we have to do is take note of the relevance and context of this announcement. That 180 million barrels over the next 6 months is a massive amount. For the next 180 days, 1 million barrels per day. This will reduce the strategic petroleum stockpile to its lowest level since 1984. That is a big amount. President Biden emphasizes how much this would affect ordinary Americans, as well as how much it will reduce gas prices. He provided a price range of 10 to 35 cents per gallon. According to other estimates, it will most likely cost between 10 and 20 cents per gallon in all actuality. But for those of us who are spending 47% more than we were this time last year, that 10 to 20 cents will suffice. It's better than nothing. Furthermore, we heard him talk about penalizing oil and gas companies who have wells but refuse to operate now, and effectively stating use or lose. You will be penalized if you do not extract the oil or gas from your properties. There will be these punitive penalties imposed on it. It's incredible how Biden is basically slamming on oil firms, even requiring a sense of ethics in terms of earnings and availability, and plainly stating that they owe us. On the one side, he's dipping into the strategic oil reserve, but on the other, he's saying that these private enterprises need to step up. He refers to it as a use it or lose it program. He is pleading with Congress to get involved, saying that any company that has a lease on wells on federal property that they aren't utilizing for production ought to use it, or else he'll urge the Congress to locate them, attempting to put more pressure on these companies to boost manufacturing in the United States. The president is really chastising these firms that may be seeking to take advantage of rising gas prices in order to increase their own profits. He goes on to argue that this is about patriotism, not personal gain, that you must put the nation first. He has already issued licenses for production on federal lands, and he claims that there are over 1 million acres that might be tapped right now. So he's really putting a lot of pressure on these firms to take the next step. According to some analysts, Biden's plan might provide significant relief to American consumers within the next 3 to 5 days. But we're not necessarily talking about a massive price drop. Many experts see this as a solution that, at least in the short term, will maintain gasoline prices closer to $4 per gallon, then raise them to $5 a gallon, which is where they were heading. Looking back in time, gasoline prices in the United States were $3.61 a year ago, and are now $4.23. We've seen a very significant movement in prices rising over the last year, but you've seen the most dramatic shift in the last couple of weeks with the Russian escalation with Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and it's from there that we get Putin's price hike. However, we are also noticing an increase in pricing elsewhere, and this has been a trend over the last year, as seen by increasing grocery prices and rentals. Many of the goods on which Americans rely have increased by 7.9% in the previous year. The main issue that economists have when considering this subject is that rising prices threaten to disrupt the economy. They threaten to disrupt the good things that are happening. It's worth noting that there has been a drastic increase on job opportunities, as well as the fact that the economy has been growing productively at record rates since the pandemic ended. Consequently, American consumers are facing greater pricing in all of these categories as well as companies since, quite honestly, most things require fuel. Transporting food to a grocery shop necessitates the use of fuel. A manufacturing plant requires fuel to operate. The list goes on. So it's an input cost that ends up reverberating throughout the system, which is why there's so much focus on it. It is also worth noting that when it comes to energy corporations, Biden emphasizes climate change and the environment as future focal areas. Now let's talk about the changeover. When we consider the future and where investment should be directed in the long run, it should not always be from the perspective of these energy firms. It is not always in investing in the traditional method of conducting business. It is in the investment of a new business structure. And that will be a question in the future as the administration puts more pressure on energy corporations to spend more and more in the conventional fashion of doing things. In the long run, does this so-called new way of doing business get the United States any closer to energy independence? According to certain estimations, the United States is already self-sufficient in the sense that it exports more energy than it imports. But the longer-term worry, at least if we're talking to oil and energy businesses, is what happens when there's this type of gap between consuming fossil fuels and the green future that President Biden mentioned, and what needs to happen in the meanwhile. This is the main focus, at least from the standpoint of the industry, and as the president kept referring to. To get more updates and news about the leaders of the world, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We produce contents almost every day. So if you're looking for a place to gain more knowledge of what the leaders of different countries around the world are doing and what the heck is going on in their minds right now, you're in the right place. Thanks for watching and see you next time.